Sunset Valley is a name that sounds like a place for lifelong relaxation, or the graveyard of your social career. If you are not community compatible, Dr. Regina Holloway, a 41-year-old black woman and former NASA employee, arrived in this neighborhood with her husband and a collection of quantum physics books, impressive enough to make the neighbors think she might be a witch. She didn't move here to make waves. She was simply part of an emergency government resettlement program for national security scientists. Sunset Valley was the only place within a 20-mile radius without a uranium storage facility. However, from the moment the moving truck arrived, she knew she wasn't exactly the right shade for this picturesque scene. A white woman washing her car with a soft-bristled toothbrush looked up at Regina as if she were driving a tank, not an SUV. A boy around 9 years old asked his mom, "Mom, who is that?" The boy's mother replied, "Oh, that's a temporary technician. They'll be gone soon." Regina let out a dry chuckle, not because it was funny, but because it was so familiar. Those wary stares, as if she were some kind of system error that had just dropped in from space. This neighborhood, with its perfectly aligned white fences, lawns trimmed with mathematical precision, and dogs that seemed to bow clearly, wasn't ready for someone like her. Her husband Marlon said just one thing as they stepped into their new house. "Are you sure you didn't accidentally sign us up for a reality show called Surviving Suburbia Deluxe, Whitewashed Edition?" And he wasn't wrong. This wasn't Regina's first time walking into a space lacking diversity. But it was the first time she'd had to live in a place where the average duration of a friendly gaze was your 8 seconds and only applied to purebred dogs. She placed the first flower pot by the door, took a deep breath, and told herself, "I've survived 0 gravity. I can survive 0 melanin." On her 3rd morning in Sunset Valley, Regina stepped into the front yard wearing a T-shirt that read "Black Women Built NASA" and began watering her flowers. She thought simply, water, flowers are flowers, and the sky that day was as beautiful as if prejudice had never existed, until the screech of tires sliced through the calm like a low-budget action movie cue. A black SUV, the kind you usually see in government conspiracy films or secret Flat Earth Society meetings, screeched to a halt right outside her gate. 2 men stepped out. The first tall, built like he was entering a pageant, but with the mental intensity of a shoplifter. The second, shorter Buzz, cut eyes darting like he was searching for the remote control inside someone else's house. Both wore dark navy uniforms with no official logos, name tags printed in Comic Sans. No badges either, just one accessory attitude. The tall one pointed at Regina and shouted, "You are trespassing on H.O.A. Controlled property. Put down the hose and put your hands up." Regina didn't move. She kept her hand on the hose, eyes steady. Instead of raising her hands, she calmly said, "You do realize I'm watering flowers on land I own, right? Or do you think I'm deploying a federally weaponized irrigation system?" The shorter man started to casually drift behind her, pretending to check the security cameras, but in reality scouting an exit, in case things got legally messy. In 3 short seconds, Regina took it all in. The guns were not government standard. The belts were too new. The fake IDs were showing. And most of all, no one trained in real security could possibly believe a black woman watering plants was a national threat. She didn't scream. She didn't panic. She tilted her head slightly, locked eyes with the man holding the gun, and asked, "You sure you want to turn this Tuesday morning into a federal true crime documentary?" At that moment, Marlon stepped out of the house, holding his iPad camera app already open, face calm, like he was about to live stream a felony in full 4K. The shorter man began to stagger backward. The taller one, perhaps for the first time in his life, realized his hands were shaking while pointing a weapon at a woman. Watering plants. Just then a rose petal fell slowly, gracefully, as if Mother Nature herself wanted to pause and watch what happened next. And in that moment, every ounce of imagined authority held by these fake government enforcers melted away under the sunlight and the unshakable calm of Regina Holloway. After their failed intimidation stunt, armed with nothing but guns and Comic Sans, the two self-appointed residential security officers slinked back to their SUV tires, crunching the fallen rose petal like a final desperate flex. We are still dangerous. Regina walked back inside and took off her gardening gloves. She didn't tremble. But she knew this wasn't a random encounter. This was the overture to a long symphony of systemic exclusion, orchestrated through warning notices and neighborhood meetings with complimentary cookies. The very next day, her mailbox held a letter from the H.O.A, the Homeowners Association, also known as the unofficial event planner for all things annoying, under the noble mission of preserving community standards. The letter was printed on paper as thick as a wedding invitation, but the content was anything but sweet. Dear Mrs. Holloway, we have noted your use of a non-compliant hose for Zone 7B. Please use equipment approved by the Aesthetic Environmental Council to avoid administrative penalties. Marlon finished reading and let out a long, heavy sigh. They want us to get permission to water. Regina just smiled, but it wasn't a laugh of amusement. It was the kind of smile worn by someone who has survived war, only to discover the most dangerous place is her own backyard. That evening, they went for a walk around the neighborhood. Every house looked suspiciously the same: white paint, white fences, white curtains, a symphony of architectural blatant whiteness. They passed by Roger's house, the self-proclaimed chairman of community history, who once opposed installing security cameras because they ruined the neighborhood's traditional character. Roger, in khaki, shorts and a polo shirt, beer in hand, stepped into their path and said, "Hello, just wanted to remind you, around here we maintain a certain standard when it comes to community image." Regina tilted her head. "Are you talking about the hose or the skin color?" Roger chuckled awkwardly, like Regina had just asked if he believed in dinosaurs. "Oh no. We welcome everyone. As long as they assimilate and respect the traditions." "You mean traditions of white people in polos who judge others with their eyes," Roger stammered. I didn't mean it like that." "It's okay," Regina smiled. "Let the H.O.A. speak your heart for you." As they walked back, Regina looked around the neighborhood. Every window was shut, but the curtains fluttered. People were watching. They were always watching, but they never saw each other. She opened her laptop and created a folder titled White Tea Operation Cleaning Up Prejudice, wrapped in politeness. And in that folder she saved security camera footage of the cop cosplay duo, the H.O.A. letter, and the full audio of her conversation with Roger, recorded with a tiny clip-on mic she had originally bought for Spanish lessons. She hadn't moved here to assimilate. She had come to see whether this neighborhood was decent enough to be called a community. On Wednesday afternoon, the wind was still. Regina Holloway, retired special ops captain and owner of the aesthetically non-compliant house, was walking home from the flower shop nearby. when she saw a boy crouching beneath an oak tree. He wore a gray hoodie and shorts, holding a toy police car. Nothing unusual except for one thing. He was the only other brown-skinned child Regina had seen in this neighborhood aside from her own reflection. "Are you following me?" Regina tilted her head. The boy looked up. His gaze didn't match his age. It was heavy. The kind of gaze that comes from knowing some truths should never be spoken because grown-ups wouldn't listen. "I'm not following you. I just wanted to make sure you were okay, Regina." Blink. I just stared down two cosplay cops with nothing but my eyes and a garden hose. "I'm okay." The boy nodded, then said softly, "I'm Zion Matthews. I live at the end of the street, the house with the red roof tiles." Regina remembered immediately. A white couple in their 40s raising a brown boy. Never seen outside, chatting, just pacing the yard with a poodle that always wore a sweater. Zion continued, "I'm glad you moved here. At least now there is someone who looks like me." Regina sat down beside him. "Someone who looks like you." Zion stared at his toy car. His voice was no longer that of a child. "The kids here call me a color patch. One time a classmate told me, 'Your house looks like someone messed up the settings.'" "And what did the H.O.A. say?" Regina asked. "They sent my parents a letter, reminding them not to let me run in the Central Park during peak hours, because I make people feel unsafe." Regina clenched her jaw, nearly asking, "What exactly is peak hour in a park when the pigeons have a meeting?" But she said nothing. She just looked at Zion, an 8-year-old who already knew how to pretend not to hear prejudice. "When I was your age," Regina said, "they told me not to laugh too loud, not to wear my hair curly to school, not to bring peanut butter sandwiches unless the crusts were cut off, because it made me stand out." Zion scoffed. "Now I know why they're scared of you." "Because I'm beautiful." Regina winked. "No, because you stand tall and look them straight in the eye," Zion said seriously. "People here like to smile and look down." A gentle breeze passed through. The toy police car rolled into the grass. Regina picked it up and brushed off the dust. "You know, this used to scare me." Zion raised an eyebrow. "You were scared of toys." "No, scared that the only time I'd see one was while being chased. Are you still scared now?" Regina looked at Zion, then shook her head. "No, but I'm angry." That night when she got home, Regina opened her filing cabinet and pulled out a folder labeling it "Zion, the Reason Not to Quit." She didn't know where the next battle would come from. An anonymous letter, a surprise property tax audit, a coincidental H.O.A. meeting scheduled right during her watering time. On Friday afternoon, while all of South Haven Heights basked in the scent of freshly cut grass and the hum of hedge trimmers, Regina S. House received exactly one thing in the mail: a pizza discount flyer. No letters, no invites, no notice whatsoever about the event that the neighbors referred to as Emergency Annual Neighborhood Meeting to preserve community harmony and tradition. Regina only learned about the event thanks to the neighbor's dog barking non-stop at a loudspeaker being set up in the park. And when she peeked over the fence, she saw a group of people in white polos and name tags, huddled in circles like they were debating which curtain shade best matched racial purity. She asked Marcus, "What are they meeting about now?" Marcus replied, "Probably another campaign to preserve the whiteness of the fences and the soul of the H.O.A. Even without an invitation, Regina decided to attend, not out of curiosity, not to cause trouble, but because H.O.A once raided a rebel compound at midnight. So a group of people in khakis sipping cucumber water couldn't possibly intimidate her. That evening, Regina walked into the community center wearing a neon purple windbreaker covered in pins that read, "Black Lives Blossom," and I paid my H.O.A fees, Karen. Inside, a bald man, Brent Witherspoon, the H.O.A president, was delivering a speech like he was about to run for governor. "We must preserve the cultural integrity of South Haven Heights. We don't discriminate, of course, but tradition is non-negotiable." Regina raised her hand. Brent looked at her like he'd just spotted a breach in the security system. "Ms. Bennett, I'm afraid this is a meeting for registered members only. Oh, I've paid my H.O.A fees. Still got the receipt in my wallet, unless you'd prefer I fax it to you like it's 1998. The room froze. A woman in the front row coughed unclear, whether from the water or the attitude Brent stammered on Friday afternoon, while all of South Haven Heights was basking in the scent of freshly cut grass and the screech of hedge trimmers. Regina's house received exactly one thing: a pizza discount flyer. No letters, no invitations, no notification whatsoever about the event. The neighbors called emergency annual residence meeting to preserve neighborhood harmony and tradition. Regina only found out about it thanks to the neighbor's dog barking non-stop at a loudspeaker set up in the park. And when she peeked through the fence, she saw a group of people in white polo shirts and name tags huddling in clusters as if they were debating the racially approved curtain color palette. She asked Marcus, "What are they meeting about now?" Marcus replied, "Probably another campaign to preserve the radiant whiteness of the fences and the sacred soul of the H.O.A. Despite not receiving an invitation, Regina decided to attend. Not out of curiosity, not to stir up trouble, but because she'd once raided a militant hideout at midnight, so a bunch of khaki-clad cucumber water drinkers didn't exactly intimidate her. That night, Regina walked into the community center wearing a neon purple windbreaker covered in pins reading "Black Lives Blossom," and I paid my H.O.A fees, Karen. Inside, a bald man, Brent Witherspoon, the H.O.A president, was giving a speech like he was running for governor. "We must maintain the cultural character of South Haven Heights. We do not discriminate, of course, but tradition is non-negotiable." Regina raised her hand. Brent looked at her as if he had just seen an intrusion alarm blinking red. "Ms. Bennett, I'm afraid this is a meeting for registered members only. Oh, I paid my H.O.A fees. Still have the receipt in my wallet. Or would you prefer I fax it to you like it's 1998? The room went silent. A woman in the front row coughed unclear whether it was the water or the attitude that had gone down wrong. Brent stammered, I just thought you might feel uncomfortable because perhaps the issues discussed here don't really pertain to you." Regina smirked. "Oh, like the no red flowers regulation, or the no black SUVs parked more than 2 hours in front of your home, or maybe the one about no backyard parties with more than 5 people of color. None of that pertains to me, right?" The room fell deathly silent. A single pen hit the floor and echoed like thunder. Regina stepped forward, pulled a USB drive from her keychain, and plugged it into the projector. "I've got footage from my home cameras, those cosplay cops from last week, high definition, and audio from an H.O.A meeting where you discussed increasing fines for non-traditional plantings in minority households. Anyone want to listen?" Brent forced a smile. "No need to escalate, Ms. Bennett. Perhaps we can discuss this Internally, great. Just make sure that next time the company includes the people who pay the electric bill for this building. Regina turned off the projector, pocketed her USB, and walked out the door, tossing one last line over her shoulder. Don't worry. I'm still planting H.O.A. roses. Might just rename them anti-discrimination shrubs to make them easier to identify. That night, the South Haven Heights residents group chat exploded with messages like "Regina is terrifying." Like, if the FBI wore gym clothes, I think we need a new rule book. With community input. She had a USB. Did y'all hear that? A USB, just like in political thrillers. But from now on, she wasn't fighting alone. Because some kids learn how to survive long before they're allowed to dream. A week after Regina made the cop cosplay duo flee like rats, when exposed in broad daylight, everything in South Haven Heights seemed to return to normal, but only seemed, on Monday morning. Regina stepped onto her front porch and found a lemon-yellow flyer in her mailbox, bold H.O.A. logo printed across the top, followed by a line underlined in aggressive red ink. Notice regarding Amendment to Regulation 27D. Landscape Maintenance, Regina sighed. Anything with numbers and letters mashed together like 27D was a sure sign someone had made up a law while sipping a macchiato. She unfolded the flyer, reading it aloud like it was a curse spell. Starting next week, the H.O.A. will enforce a new regulation concerning the harmonious color palette of front yard vegetation. All plant species with deep red, burgundy, or purple hues are deemed to cause undesirable visual impact and violate the community's visual uniformity policy. She glanced down at her brilliant red rose bed, blooming like Hollywood in springtime. Aha! So that's how we're playing, Regina muttered. And I'm guessing Mr. Rudy's purple hydrangeas are still feng shui compliant. That afternoon, her husband Marcus brought in a thick envelope stamped with the H.O.A. logo and a bold headline, "Notice Landscape Violation Identified." Inside were 3 angled photos of Regina's roses. One had a caption that read, "Red tones tend to convey strong emotions and may disrupt a sense of community safety." Regina read it and nodded. Wow! Didn't know the H.O.A. could emotionally terrorize someone with this much paperwork. Maybe tomorrow I'll plant cabbage to stay out of trouble, Marcus added. Make sure it's pastel cabbage. By late afternoon, Regina sat at the kitchen table, opened her laptop, and logged into her old military document archive. She didn't file a complaint. She didn't send a whining email. She created a full-on strategic document titled Tactical Response Plan for Civil Regulation Assault, Operation H.O.A. It opened with the line, "Every discriminatory clampdown has a weak point of paperwork. And I have more paperwork than they think." 3 days later, Regina mailed the H.O.A. a different envelope containing a copy of her Special Security Relocation Provision contract signed directly by the Department of Homeland Security. One section read, "Any landscape modifications imposed by the H.O.A. shall be considered an obstruction to federally mandated resettlement of high-clearance personnel under Federal Directive 47B. She also attached a printed selfie of her beside the rose bushes with her security camera and a sign in the background reading, "Property under federal monitoring." The next day, the H.O.A. responded with a fruit basket. Inside was a small handwritten note. "Welcome to the neighborhood. Thank you for making South Haven Heights more vibrant. We hope you continue spreading positive energy." Regina smirked. "This basket It's their apology. They should be included a free lawn care voucher, too. She grabbed a kiwi, took a bite, and told Marcus, babe, tomorrow, let's plant some purple orchids and put up a sign that says, Dodie approved aesthetics. Marcus love it. And we'll name the garden the Blooming Resistance. On Monday morning, the sun was soft, the breeze just strong enough to make the leaves whisper to each other something's about to go down. Regina, still in her Trust Black Women t-shirt and camo shorts, was watering her front yard. Roses, lavender, and an unnamed plant she called the patience bush, because every time a white person walked by and scowled, a new flower bloomed. Suddenly, a dusty silver pickup truck as filthy as a guilty conscience rolled up. It didn't signal, just stopped. The door opened, and two men stepped out, both in Navy uniforms, name badges dangling with the words, Technical Service, Inspection, South Haven. One was tall white with a sour face, like he'd just been fined for not calling people of color urban. The other was shorter with shifty eyes, like he was scanning for an escape route. Regina put down the watering can, crossed her arms, and smiled, the kind of smile that says, I've diffused grenades with my fingernails. Who the hell are you? The tall one stepped forward and said sternly, Hello, we are here to inspect for potential gas leaks per neighborhood protocol. Oh, right. I'm guessing that regulation came straight out of How to Intimidate Black Homeowners for Dummies. Huh? The shorter guy blinked a signal to the taller one, but Regina didn't miss a beat. And while we are at it, which house are you here for? Got a list. Any paperwork? Or are you planning to sniff out gas leaks using prejudice? Regina's security cameras had been rolling since 7 a.m. She knew the #1 rule in any battlefield. Always hit record before you ask questions. The tall guy was starting to lose patience. If you don't cooperate, we'll be forced to report me to the H.O.A. Regina cut in. Oh, I'm still waiting for them to swing by with cookies to apologize for missing last week's flyer. Right then, a small voice called out from across the street. They row not gas inspectors, ma'am. It was Jalen, the 9-year-old black neighbor kid, standing on his bike holding an actual contractor directory he'd snatched from his stepmom, a woman obsessed with inventory, but allergic to actual oversight. Their name badges have the wrong logo, and the real company drives white vans, not trucks that look like they're hunting lost souls. Regina turned to him and smiled, like she was watching the future of America grow up in real time. The two men started to backpedal. Regina stepped forward and pulled out her phone. Here's the deal. I've got a video. I've got audio. I've got an underage witness who doesn't even drink coffee yet. And I've got the FBI's direct line, because I've worked with them before. The shorter guy broke into a sweat and whispered to the tall one, Let's go. She has that vibe. Like John Wick H.O.A. edition. They got into the truck and backed out like they were being directed by Jordan Peele. Regina turned to Jalen and waved, Thanks, young warrior. Today you saved a flower bed and a democracy. Jalen grinned wide. They thought you were just a regular lady. Big mistake. Within 10 minutes, the entire event was uploaded by Regina to the H.O.A. system, the Civil Rights Bureau, and of course the neighborhood group chat, with the subject line, Breaking. Two background actors pretending to inspect gas just landed the last roll of their careers on my security cam. After running the fake gas techs off her lawn with nothing but cameras, Wi-Fi and grit, Regina went back inside, boiled water, poured herself ginger tea, and opened her laptop. Inbox spam. An H.O.A. email inviting her to contribute ideas for the upcoming traditional White Heritage Festival ignored. And then, a strange message popped up from a secure address. "We once hid together in a foxhole in Kandahar. Now I'm the supervisor of this H.O.A., and you are disrupting everything." Signed, Dex Mercer. Regina exhaled, not in surprise, but with the deep sigh of someone who's seen this pattern before. Every empire of prejudice eventually has a villain dressed like an old friend. Quick flashback. 2012, Afghanistan. Dex, then a logistics major, had taken shrapnel to the leg. Regina, then a rapid response lieutenant, carried him 2 kilometers through a sandstorm, shooting back and singing "Single Ladies" to stay awake. Dex had sworn, "If I survive, I'll never forget what you did." She hadn't expected that promise to be honored by sending fake gas inspections to her front yard. Regina let out a dry laugh, turned on her printer, and taped the printed email to the fridge right next to her banana bread recipe. Then she called the one person who knew Dex well enough to talk to him like an equal. Gloria Jean Gwen, best friend, retired hacker, current librarian, with a secret server farm hidden beneath the sci-fi bookshelf. "Gloria, I need to know what Dex Mercer is doing with this H.O.A. and who gave him the green light to run fake gas inspection ops like some failed Comic-Con cosplay. Wait, he's not even president yet, and he's already pulling stunts." Gloria crunched peanuts and opened 3 monitors. Less than 10 minutes later, Gloria called back. "Found it. This H.O.A. is actually a front for an organization called the Suburban Integrity Initiative. Sounds like the name of a white country band from Alabama. Not even close. They use AI to scan residents' faces. Each person is scored based on their community compatibility. Anyone scoring under 70 gets a polite invitation to move out, or a fake inspection." Regina sat upright. So it wasn't a gas leak check. It was a moral one. The secret was out. Dex wasn't just an old war buddy. He was the deputy director of a statewide community control model using racially biased AI dressed up as neighborhood security deployed via HOAS across the state. And Windermere Ranch. Just a test zone, gradually scrubbing residents of color from the community map using internal bylaws. Regina didn't cry. She didn't explode in anger. She simply picked up her phone and called Gloria again. "Pull me the neighborhood-wide camera logs. I want to know who's been near my house the past 6 weeks. What else? And send Dex a picture of me carrying him under mortar fire during that HOA-level ambush." Add this caption: "Dear friend, Don T. survived the past just to drown in bigotry today." On her screen, the footage revealed over 4 unknown visitors, 2 suspicious vehicles, and 1 HOA staffer who had once pretended to ask, "Do you sell lemonade here?" All of them were tagged assigned HOA IDs and sent directly to a third party. Dex never saw coming. The Federal Civil Rights Violations Investigation Committee. The story was turning a page, and in the next chapter, no one would get to hide behind rose bushes and flagpoles anymore. Regina had pointed her flashlight directly into the shadow, where prejudice dressed as community management. Monday, 8:37 a.m. Long Pine County Courthouse. A place normally reserved for fence disputes or rogue chicken coops. Today it was packed. Police set up barricades. Reporters poured in, and a YouTube live stream ran with the headline, "Trial of the Racist H.O.A.," featuring the heroine who carried a major through mortar fire on the defendant's bench. Dex Mercer in a tailored suit, hair slicked with gel. The face of a man who once owned his life to a woman and later repaid her by hiring fake guards to scare her while she watered her garden. Regina entered, not in glamour, not in styled curls, just a gray button-up coffee in hand, and the eyes of someone who had not come to win, but to expose how deeply broken the system had become. The plaintiff's attorney began, "We have evidence that Dex Mercer signed contracts to hire impersonators posing as security personnel to subtly pressure residents of color, including my client, a military officer with federally authorized resettlement status." Dex stammered, "I was merely following community standards." The judge frowned. By sending anonymous letters telling people they're too black to garden, Regina calmly inserted a daisy-shaped USB into the projector. On screen appeared an H.O.A. clause. All plants must remain under 60 centimeters in height, except white ones. An internal email from Dex. "If we don't intervene soon, this place will turn into Wakanda." A wartime photo of Dex being carried on Regina's back captioned, "This man was once saved by a black woman." He returned the favor by launching a campaign to evict black residents from a lawn with synthetic turf. The defense attorney sat frozen like an IKEA mannequin. Dex began sweating. In places, no one should sweat. One journalist caught him whispering to his lawyer, "Can I apply for an H.O.A. pardon? No, Dex. We are about to become a true crime podcast episode." But Regina didn't stop there. She requested to present a statewide proposal to restructure H.O.A. systems, and the entire courtroom gasped. Establish an anonymous tip line for reporting H.O.A. abuse. Require all internal policies to be reviewed by a civil rights oversight board. Conduct regular audits in any neighborhood, showing excessive resident compatibility. Because if a community only feels compatible with one skin tone, Regina said, then it's not a community. It's a 1950s sitcom being rerun in 4K. The judge nodded. Reporters took notes. Jaden, the brown-skinned boy who once cried in Regina's arms, sat in the back and gave her a quiet wave. Regina looked at him and smiled. Not the kind of smile we won, but the smile of someone who knows the nightmare keeping kids awake is finally expiring. A few days later, the Evening News reported Dex Mercer was removed from office and charged with 4 counts of civil rights violations. Regina Washington was nominated to the State Citizens Council, and the Windermere Ranch H.O.A. was officially placed under full federal review. Dex exited the courthouse quietly, but not before someone snapped a photo of him tripping over the exact H.O.A. flower bed he once approved. Social media dubbed it karma landscaping, erasing racism, one turf tumble at a time. Saturday morning, no rain, no sun, the kind of weather where you can't blame anything on the weather anymore. Regina Washington, a former soldier who once disarmed a fake security guard with her knee and sheer disdain, sat on her front steps. Left hand coffee, right hand pruning shears. Her lawn remained peaceful. The H.O.A. had gone radio silent ever since Dex Mercer's accidental stumble into the flower bed he himself signed off on. The entire neighborhood had grown oddly quiet. The kind of silence that comes when everyone feels just a little ashamed. For once being so shameless, Regina received a plain white envelope. No H.O.A. logo, no postmark. Just a line that read, "To Ms. Regina Washington, the woman my child calls the garden hero." She opened it. Slanted handwriting, soft ink, ocean blue pen. "Since you arrived, my son, A brown boy living among white houses slept through the night for the first time in 3 months. No dreams about guns, no waking me in the middle of the night to ask Mom, "Are we getting kicked out today?" Regina paused, not because she was overwhelmed, but because this was the first time she'd ever been thanked with something other than a Department of Defense certificate and red ink stamp. The letter continued. "I used to think loving my son was enough to protect him. But I was wrong, because love can't stop the weight of adult stars falling on a child's head like January snow. You didn't come to be a hero. You just watered flowers. But by watering them, you watered what was left of my son's faith. Thank you for not walking away like so many others. Because if everyone walks away, people like us, white folks who aren't racist, but never knew what to do, will only ever know how to stay silent and make tea." Regina folded the letter and placed it beside her flower pot. No reply needed. Someone finally understood. That was enough. Since the trial, a few things had quietly changed. Things only the observant would notice. The coffee shop that once told Marcus we were full now kept 2 seats marked for you two. The new H.O.A. hosted a meeting with a free buffet and an invitation printed with Regina's name in font bigger than the headline. And the kids in the neighborhood no longer called Jaden the adopted boy. Now they said, "Hey, that's the kid the army lady taught to throw a football like a Navy SEAL." Regina declined interviews, turned down talk show invites, the magazine, Ladies Who Lead, emailed for the 5th time asking for a feature. She simply replied, "I'm not leading anything. I just stayed." The following week, another quiet letter arrived in her mailbox. Just one handwritten line. "I'm rewriting the H.O.A. charter. Thank you for not staying silent like I did." Marcus read the letter, said nothing, and gently placed it into a small wooden box labeled, "No reply needed. Just keep." Regina went back to watering, pruning. Sometimes she and Jaden would sit on the porch and read. The boy now walked to school without looking down, held his toy police car without hiding it, because now he knew that being a cop wasn't just about the siren. It could also be someone who protected the right people. And if anyone ever asked Regina, "Do you regret it?" she'd just sip her coffee and say, "Regret? I haven't even finished fertilizing that back flower bed yet." This story doesn't end with applause. It ends with a neighborhood learning to live without masks, and with a black woman who once stood on a battlefield now choosing to stand on her own lawn without asking anyone's permission.